Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere cold, cruel, and unforgiving. Not in terms of weather, though that won't help either, but in terms of life itself. Imagine waking up one day in ancient China, only to find that you're being forced, no, dragged, into a massive imperial project known today as the Great Wall. You're not an architect, you're not a soldier, you're just someone the empire has decided is expendable. Your feet crunch over frozen ground, breath clouding in the sharp morning air. All around you, men shuffle nervously. Some are criminals, some are peasants. Others simply said the wrong thing to the wrong tax official. Now you're all here, bound by the same fate, to build a wall so vast it might outlive even the stars, and almost certainly you. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it for you? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're being conscripted, not enlisted. This isn't some noble draft for a just cause. You don't get armor, you don't get weapons. You get a dull robe, a sack of rice, and a vague direction: go north, and don't come back. It's the Qin dynasty sometime around the 3rd century BCE. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unify China, has decided he needs a giant stone wall to protect his northern frontier. Well, technically, he's decided you need to build it. Historians still argue whether his motivation was actual military defense or more about control and intimidation. Either way, it's your nightmare now. They call it the Long Wall of 10,000 elo. Lai being an ancient Chinese unit of measurement, not your cousin Li. It's meant to stretch thousands of miles, snaking over mountains, deserts, rivers, and frozen wastelands. And you? You're one of the estimated 300,000 workers invited to participate. Here's the best part. Most of the people building it won't make it home, ever. And no one's really going to care. The guards show up without warning. You're at your home, in your village, maybe eating watery porridge, when they storm in with scrolls and soldiers. You there, they say, pointing at you. You've been selected to serve the emperor. You try to argue, but the guard just taps the hilt of his sword. That's the end of the conversation. You're allowed to bring very little, maybe a blanket, a spoon, and a small bowl if you're lucky. You might be walking for days, possibly weeks. No cart, no horse. You're the cart and horse now. Along the way, you see others, thin, ragged, already limping. Some cry, some are silent. One man tries to run but doesn't make it far. He's dragged back by his hair, and the soldiers make an example of him. You don't run. There are stories, whispered ones, about what's waiting up north. Entire villages cleared out. Family lines ended with one conscription order. Supposedly, people are dying faster than they can build. Some say the wall's being made out of bodies as much as brick. But that can't be true, right? You walk past fields where farmers don't even look up. They know the deal. You're a ghost now, dead to them, dead to your village. They'll light incense for you, maybe, but they won't expect you back. Your mother cries as you go, but she doesn't scream. Screaming would just get her added to the list. Somewhere along the march, your clothes begin to hang looser. The food rations are sparse: dried beans, stale bread, a thin broth left with floating bits you'd rather not identify. The further north you go, the thinner the air feels. You're not imagining it. Many stretches of the Great Wall were built along high mountain ridges, and trust me, you're going to be climbing those. Night falls fast. Sleep is rare and cold and restless. You huddle with others near dying fires. Someone tells a story about their cousin who escaped and made it back south. Someone else laughs, bitter, low, disbelieving. Even if he made it home, the man says, he wouldn't live long. You desert the emperor, you might as well dig your own grave. Another joke: don't worry about graves, they'll just mortar you into the wall. You're not sure whether to laugh or cry. One night, your group passes an old section of the wall, crumbled now, covered in vines. You wonder who built it, how many died doing so. No markers, no plaques, just stones, heavy, gray, unfeeling. Somewhere in the distance, wolves howl. Someone in your group flinches. You haven't even started building yet. And already, you feel your soul thinning, like the wall is starting to take little pieces of you, brick by invisible brick. The worst part? You still believe just slightly that maybe you'll survive this. That maybe, if you keep your head down and follow orders, you'll make it back. Spoiler alert, you won't. The day you arrive at the work site, it's underwhelming. You expect grandeur, some sort of official welcome. Instead, there's mud. So much mud. Your feet sink into it like the earth itself is trying to swallow you whole. Around you are thousands of others, all in varying states of exhaustion. Some have already been here weeks, others months. One man has been here for years, and the only word he still says is dig. There's no time to rest. You're handed a crude shovel and a woven basket. You, barks a foreman. That hill. Move it. He's pointing at an actual hill. Not metaphorically. Literally, he wants you to move an entire hill. You blink. He doesn't. The concept of building the Great Wall, as romantic as it sounds from a modern distance, is horrifyingly simple on the ground. Dig, lift, carry, stack, repeat. Stones don't magically appear in neat piles. They must be quarried from nearby mountains, sometimes miles away, and dragged by human force to the site. No oxen for you. No carts. Just backbreaking labor, done with tools that would offend even a caveman. Your first job is gathering tamped earth. In some regions, especially during the early phases, the wall wasn't even made from stone. It was compressed dirt and reeds, layered and stomped until hard. You and 50 others march down to the river, fill baskets with silt, then carry them up a slope that seems specifically designed to break spirits. You dump, return, repeat, again, again, again. You try not to look at the older men. Their eyes are hollow, their movements mechanical. One coughs so hard he vomits. No one helps. The guards would punish them, or you, or both. It's a lottery of violence, and tickets are free. That night, you sleep on a bed of straw infested with bugs that do not fear fire. A rat scurries across your foot, and you don't even flinch. The only warm thing in this place is your own sweat, and even that freezes by dawn. Somewhere nearby, someone dies. You hear a soft moan, a final breath, then nothing. No one even pauses work. Later, 2 workers carry the body to a pit, too shallow to keep scavengers out. A guard shrugs. Fewer mouths to feed. Welcome to wall camp. Historians still debate how many people actually died during construction. Conservative estimates say tens of thousands. Others claim hundreds of thousands. And here's the kicker. There are no records, no lists of names. If you died, you became part of the earth or part of the wall itself. Literally. A fringe theory, popular mostly among ghost tour guides, insists that the dead were sometimes buried inside the wall to reinforce it. While mainstream historians doubt this as a structural method, they admit that, yeah, it's possible, especially for workers who dropped dead mid-construction and were too inconvenient to move, quicker to cover than to carry. You wonder briefly what your family would think if they saw you now. Covered in bruises, feet blistered, ribs showing. Would they light incense for you? Would they assume you're dead? Would they even still be alive by the time you return, if you ever do? You're not building some symbolic wonder of the world here. You're a cog in a machine that doesn't care about you. You're not just replaceable, you're expected to be replaced. Your next assignment is hauling stones. These aren't the neat uniform blocks you imagine from travel documentaries. These are jagged, uneven monsters, some the size of a goat, others bigger than your torso. You and 3 others lift one onto a wooden sled. Then you drag, up a slope, over gravel, under the weight of history and a guard's whip. If you're lucky, the sled doesn't break. If you're unlucky, the rope snaps, the stone rolls. One of your team doesn't move fast enough. His leg shatters with a crack that makes your stomach churn. The guards don't call for a healer. They just toss him a stick and say, bite down. Your rations now include fermented vegetables and a rice paste so thin it might be mostly water. Sometimes you get a pinch of dried fish. On special days, the foreman walks by with a skewer of roasted rat and offers bites to those still standing. Good protein, he says. You take it. You chew. You don't ask questions. One night, during a windstorm, part of the wall collapses. A segment of tamped earth gives way, swallowing a small work crew. You're not on that shift, but you help dig the bodies out. 4 are found, 2 aren't. They're declared part of the foundation now. The foreman laughs. No one else does. At some point, disease sets in. No surprise, really. You're living in tight quarters, no sanitation, eating barely enough to survive. Coughs echo through the camp. A fever takes hold. Some try to keep working, too scared of punishment. One man faints mid-swing. The guard doesn't even pause. just steps over him and yells for someone else to grab his shovel. You know what's ironic? In modern times, tourists walk along these same paths, take selfies, buy t-shirts. They have no idea their feet touch the dust of people who died screaming. You wonder if someone will snap a photo right above where you now sleep, cramped in a corner, too exhausted to feel your own legs. Somewhere, deep in your aching bones, you start to accept it. You won't make it out of here. You'll be another unmarked story in a sea of forgotten laborers. You'll vanish into the stone and the wind, the way all things do eventually. But especially here, especially on the wall. You wake to shouting. Morning comes not with bird song, but with the crack of a whip and the barked orders of overseers who never seem to sleep. You don't even fully open your eyes before you're on your feet, already anticipating the sting of punishment for being too slow. You slept in your clothes again, well, more accurately, in the ragged sackcloths that used to resemble clothes. Everything smells like mold, sweat, and despair. Today is a new job. You're working on the defensive towers that dot the wall every few hundred meters. From a distance, they look like noble stone watchpoints, proud and commanding. Up close, they're scaffolding nightmares. Slippery platforms built from warped bamboo and twine, leaning in ways that seem to defy physics, and not in a good way. You're told to climb, carrying bricks and pails of clay slurry used as primitive mortar. The climb is vertical, the scaffolding creaks underfoot, and the wind up there is sharp enough to cut. One wrong step and you're not falling a few feet, you're falling stories. The last man who slipped was scraped off the rocks with a shovel and buried before noon. You feel the muscles in your legs burn. Your back is already soaked with sweat despite the chill. The only thing keeping you going is the rhythm of work. One step, one lift, one set, and then again. You're building a tower that won't bear your name. That will never thank you. That might not even survive a century of erosion. The irony, of course, is that even if it collapses, no one will question how it was built. They'll just assume it was always majestic. History's weird like that. A single brick weighs more than it should, especially after you've lifted the same one 4 times because someone above you keeps shouting that it's not aligned properly. You don't remember applying for the job of ancient feng shui master, but apparently that's what you're doing now. Aligning bricks so the spirits won't get angry, or so the guards don't get angry. Honestly, you're not sure which is worse. At lunch, which is really just a handful of rice and a ladle of boiling water with maybe a beetle in it, you sit beside a man from another province. He doesn't speak your dialect, but you understand each other anyway. Misery is its own language. He points at the horizon, at the wall snaking away into the distance. You think it ever ends? He asks. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's the only way to keep from crying. No. That's the thing. The Great Wall isn't a single wall. It's dozens, maybe hundreds of interconnected sections, built and rebuilt over centuries, different dynasties, different designs, different kings and emperors with the same obsession, keep the North out, or maybe just keep their own legacy intact. Mainstream historians often argue about which emperor began it all. Qin Shi Huang is the name most people know. He unified China, built roads, standard currency, and oh yeah, forced hundreds of thousands of people into servitude to build a giant wall. Was it strategic? Maybe. Symbolic? Definitely. Cruel? You're living that answer. There's a moment in the afternoon when everything stops. A distant trumpet, a warning cry. Riders appear on the ridge. Bandits? Mongols? No one knows. The guards scramble to grab weapons. The workers are ordered to hide behind the unfinished stone. You crouch, heart racing, knowing full well you're not a soldier and that these towers won't protect you from a real army. But nothing happens. Just a rider looking down at your encampment, then galloping away, probably a scout. Still, you don't return to work for an hour, and in a twisted way, that's the best hour you've had all week. That night, they feed you extra rations. You're suspicious, of course. And you're right to be. A foreman makes an announcement. Tomorrow, the Emperor's inspectors are coming. Everything needs to look perfect, which means you'll be working through the night. You laugh again, hollow this time. How do you make perfection out of mud and misery? And yet, you try. Not because you believe in it, but because if you don't, you'll be the next person carried to the pit behind the cook tent. So you work through the dark, stacking, polishing, pretending the wall is beautiful. The next morning, the inspectors arrive with their silk robes and perfumed horses. You've never seen such clean fingernails. They look at the tower. They nod. One of them calls it elegant. You resist the urge to throw a brick at him. You need your energy for hauling wood. One inspector looks at your face, frowns, and says something about aesthetics. The foreman grabs you, orders you behind the scaffolding. Apparently, you're too dirty to be seen. You don't even know whether to be offended or grateful. When they leave, the illusion shatters. Work resumes at double speed. The foreman, suddenly relaxed, even lets you drink water before noon. It's a luxury so rare it almost feels suspicious. By sundown, one of the newer workers collapses from dehydration. You help drag him to the shade, trying not to get caught. Compassion is seen as weakness here. It draws attention, and attention draws lashes. And then, for the first time since you arrived, it rains. Not a drizzle, not a sprinkle, a full wrath of the gods, thunderclapping downpour. At first, it's glorious. Cold, clean, refreshing. Workers cheer. You let it hit your face and feel almost human. Then the wind picks up. The dirt turns to sludge. The scaffolding, slick as eel skin. A tower section collapses under the weight of softened clay. Several workers go down with it. You hear the screams, sharp and short. They're muffled by the thunder, but still carry a terrible finality. The rain lasts for hours. By the end, the camp is a swamp. The wall is cracked, and the foremen are screaming that everything must be repaired. Tomorrow, before the next inspection, you don't sleep that night. You lie awake in soaked clothes, eyes wide, listening to the slow trickle of water and wondering how something built to last forever could feel so fragile, just like you. The next morning, your legs ache before you even move. Your body isn't yours anymore. It's a borrowed tool, dulled from overuse and splintered from yesterday's rain. You sit up and find your knees caked in dried mud, your hands blistered and bleeding from splinters the size of sewing needles. But the sun is up, so you must be too. That's the rule. The damage from the storm is worse than you remember. Whole sections of the tower lie in ruins. Clay mortar has melted into the soil. The wall itself, your proud, miserable achievement, looks like a child's sandcastle after high tide. No one talks about the dead. They're already gone, carted off in silence to be buried somewhere out of sight. No names, no ceremony, not even a pause in the workday. You notice the bamboo scaffold has been patched, not with fresh poles, but with broken timbers from the fallen tower. You're going to climb on that? Of course you are. Today is a rebuild day. That means double labor, no breaks, and the worst job of all, mixing mortar. You're sent down to the riverbed with a half-dozen other men. There you fill woven baskets with clay, pebbles, and whatever sand you can scrape from between the rocks. It's heavy. The baskets dig into your shoulders like hot iron. Then comes the mixing, which involves stomping the muck with your bare feet until it becomes something sticky enough to hold stones together, but somehow not sticky enough to stay off your legs. You don't think it's working, but what do you know? You're not an engineer. You're a foot, a very tired foot. As you haul another load up to the tower, one of the older workers mutters something under his breath. You think it's a curse. He's been here for 3 years. He has the 1,000-yard stare to prove it. He tells you about a section farther west where they once buried workers in the wall. Not metaphorically, literally entombed inside the brickwork when they died, or sometimes before. Quicker than digging graves, he shrugs. Historians still argue whether that's true. Some say it was wartime propaganda. Others point to ancient texts that mention blood mortar. You don't care. True or not, you can feel how easily it could be true. As you climb the scaffold, now slick again from morning dew, you're acutely aware of just how fragile everything is. The bamboo shakes. The ropes creak. The load on your back feels like it might pull you straight down into history's forgotten footnotes. But you keep going, because the only thing worse than falling is stopping. At the top, the foreman barks at you to lay brick. You position a stone, slap on some mortar, adjust, move on. Slap, adjust, repeat. You find a rhythm. It's almost peaceful if you don't think too hard. The repetition dulls the ache, or maybe just buries it under layers of numbness. And then a voice behind you whispers, "Don't look down." Naturally, you look down. It's a mistake. The wall stretches below like a stairway into nothingness. Your vision swims. You grab the scaffolding, knuckles white. The worker behind you laughs softly, not unkindly. First time's the worst, he says. Second time's just as bad. You both chuckle, hollowly, like men who know the joke is on them. At noon they bring rations again. Cold rice, half-cooked turnip, a scrap of what might have once been chicken. You eat every grain like it's gold. One man nearby has stopped eating entirely. You think he's sick, or maybe broken in a way food can't fix. After lunch, you're moved to hauling stone. Not just bricks, massive, quarried slabs brought in by ox-drawn carts. Each one weighs more than 3 of you. You don't lift them alone, but close enough. The process involves ropes, pulleys, and shouting. Lots of shouting. Somewhere between lifts, you realize the sun has scorched the back of your neck to raw leather. You smell your own skin cooking. You try to cover up with a wet cloth, but it's taken away by the wind and lands somewhere near the latrines. You let it go. It's not worth chasing. That evening, a guard slips you something small, dried plum maybe. It's the first kindness you've seen in days. He doesn't say anything, just nods and moves on. You hold the fruit in your hand like treasure, unsure whether to eat it or save it. You eat it. It's sweet and sour and gone in 2 chews. Later, in the brief twilight before darkness clamps down again, you sit on the unfinished edge of the wall, looking out. The landscape rolls like waves. The wind smells faintly of pine. For a second, just one, you almost understand why this was built. Not for war, not even for legacy. Maybe just for the illusion of control over a chaotic world. Then a horn sounds, and you're yanked back into reality. You descend into camp exhausted. There's no bath, no comfort, just a trough of lukewarm water you share with 6 other people. You rinse the mud from your arms, watch the water turn gray, and feel no cleaner than before. As the stars appear, unpolluted and endless, you curl up on your mat of straw, every muscle begging for mercy. You wonder what tomorrow will bring. Then you remember, it's always the same. More bricks, more hauling, more breaking yourself for something you'll never see finished. And yet, you close your eyes and sleep, because you must. The morning horn slices through your dreams like a blade. You don't even open your eyes right away. What's the point? It's not like today will be different. But eventually, instinct kicks in. You sit up, joints cracking like old timber, eyes barely open as you reach for your sandals. One's missing. You find it under the sleeping body of a fellow laborer who's still out cold. You shake him gently, then harder. No response. Someone else walks by and mutters, "Leave him. He's done." You don't ask what that means. You already know. Today, you're assigned a special duty, which is never good. Turns out it means you'll be helping with one of the more dangerous operations, moving giant stone slabs from the foot of the hill up to a higher tower point still under construction. This isn't the kind of job that can be done by oxen or carts. No, this requires teams of men, rope pulleys, and the strength of desperation. You join a group of 30 others. You're handed a hemp rope that feels more like bark, and your job is to pull in sync with the others as the stone gets dragged up an incline that looks deceptively tame, until you realize there's nothing stopping it from rolling backward. The foreman shouts a rhythm, something between a chant and a bark. Heave! 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 You mimic the movements, muscles screaming with every tug. Mainstream historians agree that the wall was built in layers, sometimes across centuries, with various dynasties adding to and modifying it. But what they don't always emphasize is just how unrelenting the physical labor was. It wasn't merely stone stacking. It was a feat of endless human endurance, repeated daily by thousands like you. At one point, the slab jerks, the rope slips. There's shouting, a tumble, and you see someone vanish down the slope, arms flailing. No one stops. You can't. If you do, the entire thing will crash back and you'll all be crushed. You grit your teeth and pull harder. Once the stone reaches its spot, you're reassigned, this time to the fire kilns. This is new. You're excited for exactly 3 seconds until you realize that this isn't a cooking fire. It's the brick furnace. Your job is to feed it with kindling and clay bricks, then help shovel out the baked results. It's like standing next to the mouth of a dragon. The heat sucks the moisture from your skin. Your lips crack open. Your eyes sting. And the air, it's thick with soot. You cough once, then twice, then more. A worker next to you pulls up a rag over his mouth. You follow his lead. It helps, barely. By midday, your shirt is soaked through with sweat and ash. Your hair smells like burnt earth. You consider jumping into the river. You don't, because they beat you. There's a lull in work when one of the supervisors climbs up a mound and announces that the Emperor's inspectors will be arriving soon. He says it like it's good news. You can't figure out how. The inspectors are known for punishing whole camps if standards aren't met. They don't see individuals, only outcomes. Bricks misaligned, workers whipped. Mortar soft, punishments extended. The whole place buzzes with nervous energy now. There's less talking, more frantic work. You're moved again. This time it's wall resurfacing. Basically, smoothing out uneven layers of the wall with a combination of mud, brick fragments, and what looks suspiciously like animal dung. It smells exactly how it sounds. You use a flat wooden paddle and your bare hands. Your knuckles start to bleed again. A few times you wonder if this wall really needs to be so smooth. But no one's asking you. During a short break, someone offers you a paste made from ground millet and river water. It tastes like wet cardboard, but you gulp it down. It sticks to your ribs like cement. You feel a little more alive. The older man from yesterday is nearby again. He tells you this part of the wall is being rebuilt over older foundations. There's a skeleton under every stone, he mutters. You ask if he's speaking metaphorically. He doesn't answer. Quirky tidbit. In some regions, old legends say that human shadows were once trapped inside the wall to bind its spirit. A kind of magical insurance policy to keep enemies out. You wonder how many shadows it took. Back at your post, the wall seems to stretch on forever. You work beside men who speak different dialects, maybe even different languages entirely. Some were conscripted, some were prisoners, some volunteered in desperation. No one talks about what they left behind. It's easier not to. As dusk approaches, the foreman announces the night shift will be building a watchtower. Yes, a night shift. Turns out some parts of the wall must be constructed continuously to maintain momentum. You're not selected, but the man next to you is. He looks too tired to stand, let alone climb. He nods, expression blank, and walks off like someone heading into a fog. You get a few hours of rest. A woman, one of the very few on site, comes by offering a bowl of warm broth. You wonder if she's a laborer too, or perhaps one of the local villagers roped into support duties. You accept gratefully, and it's the best thing you've tasted in days. There's a faint hint of ginger. Luxury. Before you sleep, you watch the stars again. Same sky, different aches. You hear the hammering from the tower above, still ongoing even in the dark. The wall never sleeps, and neither, it seems, does the suffering that built it. You lie down, but this time, you don't fall asleep right away. Your body is tired, yes, but your mind is somewhere else, floating, searching for the person you used to be before the wall claimed you. You can't remember what your village looked like, or your mother's voice. Just stone, mortar, sweat. You wonder how long before the inspectors arrive. You wonder if you'll still be here when they do. The inspectors arrive at dawn, just as a ghostly mist still clings to the valley. Word spreads fast. They're here. You're not sure what you expected, but it wasn't this. The imperial men wear layered robes far cleaner than anyone around them. Their horses gleam with expensive leather saddles, and even their scrolls look like they've never seen dust. They don't walk. They glide, heads held high, noses tilted upward like they're breathing better air. You stand in line with the others as they move through, flanked by guards who hold long rods and make a show of tapping them menacingly into the mud. One inspector stops in front of a stone section you help place. He squints, then frowns. You brace yourself. The foreman hurries over, offering excuses, bowing so low he might topple forward. A few heartbeats pass before the inspector finally nods and moves on. You exhale, but the tension doesn't leave your body. It lingers, curling around your spine like a serpent. Once they're gone, work resumes at double speed. No one speaks above a whisper. The older man beside you, he never gave you his name, leans in and says, "The lucky ones get transferred after inspections. The unlucky ones disappear." You don't ask what he means by disappear. Today's task is wall packing. It sounds innocent. It isn't. You're handed a heavy wooden tamper and led to a site where layers of earth and rock are being poured into a frame. Your job? Compact it, over and over and over again. With each lift, your arms burn, With each drop, your knees buckle slightly from the rebound. Mainstream fact: the Great Wall isn't a single structure. It's many walls, built and rebuilt by different dynasties over centuries. Some parts are made of stone, others of tamped earth, like the one you're working on now. And tamped earth requires repetition, hundreds of repetitions, thousands even. Each layer must be crushed down so tightly that it resists rain, time, and invasion. You lose track of time. The motion becomes hypnotic. Lift, drop, compact, again, again, again. You stop noticing the ache in your shoulders. It blends with everything else: the grit in your teeth, the blisters on your palms, the dust in your lungs. A younger worker, barely more than a boy, collapses mid-swing. He's dragged to the side, where someone tries to revive him with a splash of cold water. You don't see him get back up. Later, when you pause to catch your breath, you're offered a peculiar mixture in a bamboo cup. It smells like vinegar and herbs. Fermented rice water, someone explains, keeps your insides from drying out. You drink it. It's sour, but not unpleasant. Another reminder that survival here requires constant adaptation, even in what you choose to put in your mouth. Quirky tidbit: some builders believe that spitting into the foundation would bind their spirit to the wall, making it stronger. It sounds ridiculous until you've spent hours crushing dirt and realize that superstition gives you something, anything, to hold on to. By midday, a group of prisoners is brought in. You recognize their shackles and sullen faces. They're kept separate from the rest of you, but the fear is contagious. One wrong move, one slow swing of the tamper, and you could be next. The overseers make that very clear. Historians still argue whether certain sections of the wall were ever meant to last, the older man says later that evening. Some think it was more about symbolism than strength. Show the enemy you'll bleed yourself dry to keep them out. You think about that as you stir a thin soup over a shared fire. It's barely enough to warm your hands, let alone your belly. You sip slowly, savoring each bit of rice like treasure. Later that night, the winds pick up. Sand swirls through the camp, stinging your eyes and coating your skin. The tents flap violently, some collapsing altogether. You curl into yourself, trying to create a barrier with your arms. There's no sleep, just the whistling of the wind and the cold creeping into your bones. At dawn, there's word of another death, an older man who simply didn't wake up. They bury him nearby, not even a marker to remember his name, just another mound among many. You don't know him, but you feel the loss like a bruise on your ribs. The foreman is less sympathetic. Back to work, he barks. Wall won't build itself. You trudge out again, feet sore, eyes gritty, back bent from yesterday's labor. A part of you wants to rebel. Just stop. Sit down. Let the wall rise without you. But you know better. That's not how this place works. In the distance, you see a completed tower. It looks proud, majestic even, a slice of power carved into the landscape. It's beautiful in a way, but when you remember the bodies it stands on, the beauty turns sour. You lift the tamper again, drop, compress, repeat. The rhythm is maddening and yet oddly calming, like you've become a cog in something ancient and unstoppable. You wonder how many have come before you, how many left parts of themselves in these walls, sweat, tears, shadows. By now, your body has started to adjust. The aches are still there, but they've faded into a dull companion. You move through the motions like you were born for them, which is the scariest part of all, because it means you're getting used to it. You wake before sunrise, not because you want to, but because your body has learned that silence in the camp never lasts. Somewhere, a rooster crows. Not the proud kind in paintings, but a ragged bird that sounds like it's also dying slowly. You roll onto your side and stretch, muscles stiff and unwilling. Another day, another 10,000 tamped earth compressions. But this morning is different. There's talk of a new task, quarrying. You're herded with others across a rocky incline where carts wait, wheels groaning under their own weight. You're handed a rusted iron pick and pointed toward a cliff face that looms like the jaw of a sleeping dragon. And just like that, you become a stone breaker. Mainstream fact: the Great Wall consumed millions of tons of stone. Entire hills were carved down to supply the raw material for certain segments. Especially in the northern provinces, large slabs were mined and transported by hand, ox, or slave labor. You swing your pickaxe for the first time. The impact reverberates through your wrist like a slap from the mountain itself. You shake it off. Again, sparks fly as iron hits stone. It's not elegant and there's no rhythm, not like tamping. This is more primal. Crack, chip, curse, repeat. You quickly learn that rock isn't passive. It resists. It fights back. Your hands blister beneath rough splinters of bark-wrapped handles. The dust rises in thick waves, coating your throat and making every breath feel like swallowing chalk. The man beside you ties a strip of cloth around his nose. Mountain lung, he warns, voice muffled, kills you from the inside. You follow suit, though the cloth is thin and useless. It's like trying to hold back a sandstorm with a napkin. Quirky tidbit. Some workers whispered that certain boulders were angry, cursed by local spirits. If a stone rolled and killed a worker, it wasn't blamed on gravity or slope. No, it was the rock getting revenge for being disturbed. You chuckle at first, until a slab does slip, dragging a man down with it. His screams echo off the canyon for what feels like minutes. They don't retrieve the body. Just mark the spot and move the boundary rope 10 feet away. Later, you're put in charge of hauling. Stone blocks the size of a small buffalo must be rolled onto sledges, then dragged by teams of 8 to 10 men down a winding path. You're assigned a hemp rope, thick and itchy. Lean with your back, not your arms, someone grunts, or you'll tear something important. The sled jerks forward, and your knees nearly buckle. Every inch gained feels like lifting the moon with dental floss. Sweat pours from your face like a leaking faucet. Your vision narrows. Nothing exists except the friction of your feet on dry earth, the sting of the sun on your back, and the constant groan of the wood under strain. Historians still argue whether this method was efficient or just a way to exhaust workers, says one of the older haulers. But nobody cares what's efficient when labor is free. When you finally reach the base of the wall again, your arms tremble from fatigue. Someone else chisels notches into the stone to help it slide into place. You get a few minutes to drink. You tilt your bowl and murky water sloshes down your chin. It's warm and tastes like iron. Your reward for a job well done? More tamping. At night, your dreams are weird. You're floating above the wall, watching yourself work like a puppet. You dream of being buried alive between layers of packed earth, your screams muffled under dirt. You wake gasping and covered in sweat, but no one notices. Everyone's too tired to talk, let alone care about nightmares. You spend the next week switching between mining, hauling, tamping. On the 5th day, a man collapses in the quarry and is left where he fell. You ask if there'll be a burial. Someone shrugs. The vultures will take care of it. You glance up and sure enough, one circles lazily overhead, riding the thermals. The only real reprieve comes during sharpening hour. It's a strange moment at dusk when all tools are brought to a central fire and honed against stone. It's oddly meditative, the scrape of metal, the flicker of flame, the gentle hiss of steam when sweat hits hot steel. You chat quietly, share stories, and trade rumors. One of the guards mentions a section of the wall that took 30 years to finish. Imagine working your whole life, he says, and never seeing the end of it. You nod silently, knowing you very well might be part of that same story. As you lie down that night, your fingers still twitch as if pulling ropes in your sleep. Your body is a map of bruises and cuts. You whisper a small prayer to the mountain gods, half joking, half desperate, something between let me live and let me stop. The wall, meanwhile, keeps growing. You can see its silhouette stretch farther than yesterday, like it's hungry, like it's crawling across the land, inch by inch, dragging you with it. By now, your body has accepted the pain as part of waking life, like the morning sun or the smell of ash. Your palms are calloused, your feet raw, and your stomach perpetually on the edge of hunger. But this next stage, it tests something deeper than muscle. You've been reassigned again, this time to the mountain watchtower build. Fewer workers, harsher conditions, more chances to fall off the side of a cliff. Congratulations. The overseer gestures to the ridgeline above, barely visible through morning haze. That's your new post, he grunts. You squint. It's not a post. It's a vertical dare, the kind you look at and think, if I survive climbing that, I deserve a reward, or at least a nap. Climbing it is no joke. No rope harness, no safety net. Just narrow trails, slippery stone steps, and occasional handholds chipped into the rock. You and the others ascend in a silent wall, shuffling line like ants migrating uphill, except ants don't suffer vertigo. Mainstream fact: strategic watchtowers were placed along high ridges of the Great Wall to increase visibility between points. From these towers, fires and smoke signals could be sent across vast distances, early warning systems against Mongol incursions. But building these towers meant hauling materials up mountains. At the halfway point, you're gasping like a fish. Your legs burn, and you feel the weight of the tools strapped to your back like a second skeleton. Someone ahead of you slips, sending a rock tumbling. It bounces once, then vanishes into the abyss. You pause. Your brain does quick math. If he had fallen, he would have died in under 3 seconds. You reach the summit at last. The air is thin, but the view is expansive. Forests stretching for miles, rivers like threads below. Beautiful, if you weren't seeing it through the lens of fear and exhaustion. Then you see the supplies. You expected maybe a pile of neatly arranged bricks. Instead, it's logs, heavy wooden beams, sandbags, mortar in large ceramic urns, and you're the new mule. Quirky tidbit: instead of beasts of burden, many remote sites use chained prisoners to carry supplies. The logic? If one tried to escape, he'd drag the others with him. A cruel but effective leash system. You're not chained, but suddenly, the idea doesn't seem far-fetched. You spend the next hours doing what they call monkeying, scaling the sides of steep rock walls to retrieve wood that's been left on natural ledges. You begin to understand that ancient Chinese architecture was less about math and more about madness. Hammering begins. Stones are chiseled into angular bricks, each shaped to fit its neighbor like a puzzle. You're handed one of these and told to mind the curve. The wall here snakes with the ridge, not in a straight line. Every stone must bend with the mountain. You slam your thumb twice with a mallet. The pain is white-hot and immediate. Blood beads beneath the nail. A fellow worker winces, then shows you his hand. All 5 fingers are crooked in different directions. Wall hand, he says, smiling grimly. You mix mortar next, lime, clay, and crushed stone. It's gritty and heavy. You scoop it with a flat board and slap it between layers like icing a cursed cake. Sometimes, in your haze, you imagine the wall is alive, and you're feeding it. Bite by bite. Historians still argue whether forced laborers or military troops built most of these towers. Someone mumbles nearby, probably parroting a scholar they overheard once. But does it really matter? The bodies stacked behind it tell the same story. You try not to think about the drop. One wrong step, and gravity turns you into history. Still, there's a kind of magic here. In a moment of rest, you peer into the valley below and see the line of the wall winding like a dragon, its back arched across hills. Smoke drifts from a distant camp. You realize how big this thing is, and how small you are. Night falls abruptly. There's no tent, just a makeshift shelter of planks and a windbreaker sheet. You press your back against warm stone, hoping residual heat staves off frost. The stars here feel closer, like you could scoop them with your hands. A guard recounts a tale of a builder who vanished during tower construction. Slipped, they say, but his body never surfaced. Locals claim they still hear knocking from inside the wall on cold nights. You roll your eyes. Still, you don't sleep well. By morning, frost kisses the stone. Your breath puffs out in tiny clouds. You pull your shirt tighter and rise, limbs aching. The air up here feels older, like it remembers things the lowlands forgot. You wonder if the people who planned this wall ever stood where you are. Did they imagine the death count, the frostbitten fingers, the trail of grief? Probably not. Or worse, they did. You take up your tools again and fall into rhythm: hammer, mortar, brick, repeat. Somewhere below, the rest of the wall grows like a snake that never stops moving. Up here, you're just one more vertebrae. You wake to the sound of a horn, low, mournful, like the mountain itself groaning in protest. It's barely light, just a weak band of blue across the jagged horizon. Your limbs are sore, colder than yesterday, and your hands barely work until you slap them against your thighs for circulation. There's no coffee, no breakfast sandwich, just a chunk of barley cake as dense as brick and twice as dry. Today, you're ordered to help install what they call the dragon spine, the battlements. These are the saw-toothed tops of the wall, meant to protect archers while giving them a place to shoot from. You've seen sketches of the finished design, but in person, they're enormous. Just one crenellation is taller than your chest. Mainstream fact: these crenellated parapets were one of the Great Wall's key defensive features. Soldiers could duck behind the solid merlons, then step between to shoot arrows through the gaps known as embrasures. The system offered a strong defense while maximizing attack potential, essentially a game of medieval whack-a-mole with real consequences. You help haul the heavy stones up a wooden scaffold that looks like it's one sneeze away from collapse. Every step you take, the boards creak with the drama of a stage play. The guy in front of you moves slow, too slow. Then he stumbles. You both freeze. He recovers, but now you're gripping the side rail with a new kind of loyalty. At the top, you help lower one of the stones into place. Mortar squishes out like dough. Your fingers ache from the cold, and when you look down, one knuckle is cracked and bleeding. Again. The commander overseeing construction yells at someone. Then he yells at everyone. His anger is generic, a permanent setting. He shouts things like, "You call that straight?" And "Are you building the wall or your own tomb?" Funny thing is, both might be true. Quirky tidbit: superstition among workers said if a section of the wall collapsed repeatedly, a human life needed to be buried beneath it to anchor the structure. Scholars debate how literal this practice was, but the rumors were enough to keep everyone working with anxious precision. You notice an older man working beside you, his beard long, his eyes sunken. He doesn't speak, just sets stones with mechanical calm. At one point, his hand slips and his entire arm jerks with the momentum of the stone. You rush to help him, but he waves you off. He's probably built more of this wall than you've eaten meals. "Don't think," he mutters. "Just build." Thinking slows the hands. You want to ask what he means, but you already know. Thoughts are dangerous here. They remind you of the life you had before or the life you'll never get to have. Better to stay in the rhythm. The day blurs. Haul, lift, place, smear, repeat. The sun climbs higher, but it never feels warm. At some point, the commander calls a break, and you sink against the stones like they're made of feathers instead of granite. Someone starts singing, a slow folk tune from the southern provinces. Others join in. The melody is strange, minor, but soothing. You close your eyes, letting it swirl around you. Historians still argue whether these songs passed between laborers spread across dynasties or if they evolved independently, someone murmurs. You open your eyes. It's the old man again. But when you're breaking your back, music is the only shovel that doesn't weigh more than you. That night, it snows. Not a lot, just a dusting, but it changes everything. Snow on stone is like grease on glass, treacherous. One man slips down a slope and twists his ankle. You help carry him back to camp. He'll be given a few days of rest, but you both know what that really means. If he can't work soon, he'll be left behind. Later, you huddle close to the fire. A soldier roasts something unidentifiable on a stick. It smells like rat. You try not to think too hard and chew slowly. Hunger dulls disgust. Someone brings out a small jug of rice wine, contraband obviously. It passes hand to hand. When it reaches you, you take the smallest sip. It burns your throat but warms your chest. A small mercy in a place where mercy is in short supply. As you stare into the fire, someone tells the tale of Meng Jiangnu, a woman whose husband died building the wall. According to legend, her grief was so deep that when she wept at the wall, it collapsed, revealing his bones. You smirk. If that were true, you whisper to the old man, this whole thing would be rubble by now. He chuckles, but it fades quickly. She cried for one man, he says. Imagine if the rest of the widows showed up. You lie awake that night, back pressed to cold stone, your breath fogging the air. You count stars until you run out of numbers. The wind howls through gaps in the wall, moaning like it's morning. You try not to think, just sleep. Another day waits, and you've got more dragons to build. Your boots crunch through ice-crusted dirt before the sun even crests the ridgeline. Your joints scream in protest, especially your knees, which now crackle with every step like firewood about to snap. There's no stretching, no yoga mat, no take it easy today. There's just the wind biting your face and a command to move 100 granite bricks up a hill by nightfall. Today is ramp building day. You've heard the phrase back-breaking labor before. Ramp construction redefines it. You're not laying out gentle inclines. These are steep, winding access ramps that let soldiers and carts ascend the wall quickly in case of invasion. Trouble is, they require foundations deep enough to avoid collapse. especially in erosion-prone terrain like this. Mainstream fact, sections of the Great Wall include complex ramp systems, especially in mountainous regions, allowing troops and supply wagons to reach elevated towers and turrets. These weren't afterthoughts. They were critical for rapid mobilization and defense. To start, you and your work unit must dig, again, this time not just shallow pits, but trenches deep enough to support the full width of the ramp. The frozen topsoil breaks only with relentless hammering from picks and shovels. Within an hour, your hands are raw, even through the coarse gloves made of straw and linen. Beside you, a man from the western provinces jokes that your group is digging a tunnel to escape. No one laughs. As midday approaches, you finally reach a depth deemed sufficient. Then it's time to fill the trench, not with gravel or cement, but alternating layers of tamped earth, stone, and even twigs. These layers are pounded flat using a massive drum-like rammer, operated by 6 men. It weighs as much as a small ox and sounds like thunder when dropped. Quirky tidbit. Some historians believe ancient workers used a kind of proto-rammer shaped like a large wooden beetle. In certain dialects, these tools earned nicknames like earth-eating bugs because of how they compacted the land like devouring machines. Operating the rammer becomes your next job. You're one of the 6 assigned to lift, drop, over and over. It's the most rhythmic work you've done, which sounds almost soothing, until your shoulders nearly dislocate from one mistimed heave. You bite the inside of your cheek to stay alert. The team leader shouts, "In sync or die crooked," a grim slogan that now doubles as workplace motivation. Hours pass. The ramp slowly takes shape, inch by inch. Each new layer must dry before the next one is added, which means you also spend plenty of time hauling supplies for the next section. Logs, bricks, and buckets of sand from a frozen riverbank. You work like an ant on a hill that never stops growing. By mid-afternoon, a runner arrives with news. A new unit of soldiers will march through this section by the end of the week. Suddenly, your deadline tightens. You're not building a ramp anymore. You're laying down a literal battlefield runway. Historians still argue whether military schedules accelerated wall construction in surges or maintained constant pressure. The old man mutters beside you. But I know one thing. We never slowed down. You're too tired to ask how many surges he's seen. Probably too many. Just before dusk, a brick slips from someone's load and smashes their foot. The crack is loud. They scream, collapse. A few soldiers rush over. One looks at the foot, nods to another. Out for 2 weeks, maybe forever. He's carried away, not to a doctor, but to the edge of the camp, where the injured rest under blankets and try not to become forgotten. You help finish laying the final segment of stone for the day. The sun drops behind the peaks, and shadows stretch across the ramp like the fingers of some ancient beast, dragging you into night. Dinner is watery millet soup with chunks of boiled root. You chew slowly, then settle onto your plank cot, using your rolled-up tunic as a pillow. Sleep should come easily, but tonight something's different. There's a noise, distant at first. Like chanting, you rise confused. Others are stirring too. You follow the sound toward a ridge near the unfinished ramp. There, under a moonlit sky, a group of workers stand in a circle, humming low, eerie tones. In the center is a small clay figure. You recognize it. It's a spirit offering, a figurine buried to ward off bad luck or collapsing structures. Quirky again. Though many call these superstitions, archaeologists have found remnants of ritual objects along ancient wall segments. Whether protection, protest, or prayer, they offer a glimpse into how spiritually fraught this work really was. You watch silently as one worker places a thread of hair into the clay doll's chest. Another whispers something in a dialect you don't recognize. Then they bury it beneath the ramp, covering it gently with earth. They notice you, but no one says a word. Just a slow nod, as if to say, "We're all in this together," or under it. Back in bed, you try not to think about what just happened. You tell yourself it's just tradition, nothing more. But deep down, the ground beneath your cot suddenly feels less stable. You whisper a quiet wish into the dark. Let the ramp hold. Let my feet not falter. Let my body last one more day. You wake up to a dull ache pulsing behind your eyes. The thin air, the cold millet diet, and the ceaseless pounding of stone and dirt have caught up with you. Still, there's no such thing as a sick day on the wall. The task for today? quarry duty again. Except this time, you're not just fetching pre-cut stone, you're making it. Your group hikes an hour north to a jagged outcrop of dark granite. The wind howls like an angry spirit, and your cloak barely holds the warmth in. You're handed a hammer, a chisel, and a pickaxe that looks like it's already lived 10 lives. The foreman points to a stone face and simply says, "Cut." And so you begin. Mainstream fact: much of the Great Wall was constructed with locally sourced materials. In mountainous areas, this meant quarrying massive amounts of granite and limestone by hand, often with primitive tools and no machinery to assist. Each strike of your hammer vibrates up your arm, sending jolts to your already inflamed shoulder. You and your team work a method called plug and feather. That's where you chisel out a row of small holes, insert metal wedges, then slowly hammer until the rock fractures. It sounds simple. It is not. The rock does not want to break. It resists you, taunting you with every dull thud. Your hands blister again, then bleed. Someone 2 spaces down from you tries to rush it. His wedge slips, hammer rebounds, and slams into his forehead. He drops unconscious. They carry him away, and no one speaks of it again. You pause to take a breath. Your mouth is dry, your lips cracked. One of the guards tosses you a goatskin flask. It's filled with warm, slightly sour water that tastes faintly of onion and rust. You drink it like it's nectar from heaven. A younger worker beside you leans in and mutters, "They say these rocks scream if you hit the wrong spot." You nod, unsure if he's joking or just losing his mind like you probably are. Quirky tidbit: ancient Chinese quarrymen sometimes offered incense before major rock-cutting sessions, believing that mountain spirits guarded certain cliffs. Failing to appease them could lead to accidents or worse. Eventually, a rock splits. The sound is like a thunderclap in your ears, a moment of pure joy. Your team cheers weakly, then rushes to bind the slab in ropes. You help drag it down the icy slope on a wooden sledge that barely holds together. It takes an hour to move the thing 300 meters. The path is slick, your breath fogs the air, and your knees scream with each step. Once, the sledge skids sideways and nearly crushes a man's leg. You all recover just in time, but the brush with disaster leaves your hearts thudding like war drums. When you finally deliver the stone to the ramp site, you drop to your knees in exhaustion. A soldier gives you a thin smile and says, "That one's yours to install tomorrow. Don't let it kill you." Historians still argue whether materials were dragged by human labor or carted by animal sledges. The truth? It was likely both, depending on terrain, and always under brutal conditions. That night, your hands won't stop shaking. You soak them in a clay basin of warm water, watching dirt and blood swirl together like some ancient potion. A nearby worker, one of the old-timers, nods at your hands and says, "First time they bleed? That means you're married to the stone now." You don't laugh. You just nod and go back to scrubbing. Dinner is richer than usual. Someone has caught a wild bird, skinny but fresh, and roasted it over a small fire. It's shared between 10 of you. You chew slowly, savoring each stringy bite like it's a banquet. Later, as you settle in for the night, the old man speaks again. "They buried one alive last year," he says. "Wall segment kept collapsing. They say a sacrifice made it hold." You sit up, alarmed. He nods. "A criminal. At least that's the story. Probably nonsense. Or maybe not. You felt it, haven't you? The wall doesn't like to be rushed." You lie back down slowly, watching shadows flicker on the canvas above you. The wind outside picks up. It sounds like voices, whispers. You pull your cloak tighter and try to remember what your village looked like before all this. The trees, the rice fields, your mother's singing while cooking. All of it feels like a dream someone else told you. In the dark, you murmur the only truth you know: the wall always wins. You start the day with something new, bone-deep dread. You're not quarrying, not laying bricks, not dragging mud, but marching. Today, the labor force is relocating to a new section of the wall. Apparently, the previous team either died off, deserted, or collapsed under the pressure. You don't ask, you just go. Your boots are little more than straw and scraps of leather tied together, and within the first hour of hiking, your feet are soaked through with slush. The mountains loom ahead, those jagged northern ridges where the wind never stops and the sky looks like a dull blade. You're told you'll be reinforcing an older portion of the wall that keeps falling down. Reassuring. Mainstream fact. Over the centuries, various Chinese dynasties rebuilt older wall segments, especially during the Ming Dynasty. These reconstructions often occurred in areas prone to landslides or erosion, essentially meaning that workers had to fix nature itself. You reach the segment by midday. It's worse than you imagined. The wall here is half cracked, leaning like it had a few too many rice wines. Huge gaps open between the stone layers, and entire blocks lie shattered on the hillside below. Rebuild from the bottom, the foreman says, which means digging through the collapsed mess, stone by stone, like rewinding an avalanche. You join a small crew assigned to the worst section. The earth here shifts beneath your feet. Every step is a gamble. You start pulling rocks out of the slope, brushing off dirt, looking for usable pieces. Occasionally, you find bones. You don't ask if they're animal or human. Nobody does. A guy from a nearby team mutters, "They buried some people in here to hold it together." You shrug. At this point, would it really surprise you? Quirky tidbit. Some legends claim the mortar for certain sections of the Great Wall was mixed with human bones or blood to make it stronger. While unproven, the belief was so widespread that it persisted for generations. As you rebuild, a light snow begins to fall. At first, it's gentle, almost peaceful, but the wind soon picks up, hurling the flakes sideways and chilling your bones. Your fingers go numb. Still, you work. You all do. There's no shelter until the day's quota is met. Your job now is tamping soil between stone layers. A simple tool, a thick wooden mallet with an iron bottom, slams down again and again to pack the clay. Your back burns, your thighs cramp. One misstep and your foot sinks into the mud, which smells like rot and metal. A reminder that you're still standing atop the remains of previous failures. Someone cries out. An avalanche of stones cascades down from the higher ridge. Everyone ducks. No one is hit, but it's enough to rattle nerves. You glance upward and see loose boulders teetering, as if deciding whether to crush you today or tomorrow. Historians still argue whether the most dangerous work was building the wall or maintaining it after natural disasters. The old man from earlier says beside you, "I say it's all one big death sentence either way." You finish tamping your section just before sunset. Every joint in your body screams, but you're done. For now. A soldier marks your name on a bamboo tally stick, then hands you a thin cake of barley and something vaguely resembling soup. You don't complain. At camp, you try to sleep, but the ground is uneven, the air frigid. You curl into yourself like a shrimp and dream of a warm bed. Instead, you wake to a rat nibbling at your bootstrap. You hiss and kick, but the rat vanishes into the dark with a piece of leather in its mouth. You're too tired to care. The next morning, a new task awaits, firing bricks. The clay is different here. Red, almost bloody. It stains your hands. You join a makeshift kiln crew. Your job, feed the fire. You lug dry brush and splintered logs into the roaring pit, sweating despite the snow. The smoke claws at your lungs. You cough until your ribs ache. But the bricks need to bake, and if the temperature drops even slightly, the whole batch turns to brittle garbage. "Keep it hot," the kiln master says, as if you had any control over the mountain winds that now howl louder than a whole parade of ghosts. Hours pass. You hallucinate shapes in the smoke. Warriors, dragons, maybe your grandmother holding a bowl of warm porridge. It makes you tear up. One of the crew members hands you a cloth mask soaked in vinegar. "Keeps the poison out," he says. You're not sure if he means the smoke or the hallucinations. When the shift ends, your face is blackened with soot, your eyelashes crusted with ash. You stumble back to your sleeping mat, curl up, and listen to someone snoring softly beside you. It sounds almost musical, something like peace. But then you hear it again, that eerie shifting sound of stones grinding against each other in the wind, as if the wall is, and maybe it is. Maybe after all these years, the Great Wall isn't just a monument. Maybe it's alive, and maybe it's hungry. Morning comes as a pale glow behind a veil of clouds. You stretch your aching limbs, shake off the crust of frost on your blanket, and prepare to do it all over again. Only today, the foreman announces something new, a river crossing. You're being sent down to retrieve timber from a nearby forest, and the path cuts through a fast-moving river swollen with meltwater. The bridge? It's gone. Apparently it was swept away by last week's storm. So now, a few dozen laborers, yourself included, are ordered to carry timber back across the river without falling in. You trudge downhill, tools slung over your back, eyes darting to the heavy gray clouds. You've stopped hoping for fair weather. The river rushes before you, cold and loud, a constant growl echoing between the rocks. You can't swim. Most people can't. It's not like swimming is a peasant's skill out here. A rope is slung across the water, your lifeline. One by one, you step into the freezing current, clutching the line, dragging logs behind you. The weight nearly pulls you under. Your teeth chatter, muscles cramp, and the water sucks away every drop of heat in your body. Your foot slips, just for a second, but it's enough to spike your heart with terror. Mainstream fact: transporting construction materials like timber, bricks, and lime across dangerous terrain was one of the deadliest parts of the Great Wall's construction, especially since many remote sections had no proper roads or bridges. You make it across barely. Behind you, someone screams. You turn just in time to see a man vanish into the river, a log floating where he used to be. No one speaks. You keep walking. You're not allowed to mourn. There's a quota to meet. In the forest, trees stand like silent witnesses. You hack down young ones with a rusted axe, stack the trunks, bind them with hemp rope. Then, you guessed it, you carry them back. Halfway through the second trip, you begin to feel lightheaded. The cold has sunk deep into your bones. You try to remember the last time you ate something with actual calories. Maybe 3 days ago? Or was that a dream? Back at camp, you try to warm yourself beside a dying fire, but the embers are barely hot enough to toast a beetle. Someone offers you a small stone jar filled with warm rice wine. You sip. It burns your throat but lights a tiny flame in your chest. You clutch the jar like it's a talisman. Quirky tidbit: some workers were known to sneak fermented grain or rice wine into their quarters, not just to drink, but to rub on joints and frozen limbs to ward off ghost chill. Totally unscientific, totally worth it. The next day brings something worse: punishment duty. A few workers were caught trying to hoard extra food. Your team is forced to dig deep holes along the wall's edge as penance. Not graves officially, but no one says what they're for. The soil here is full of stones. You strike them with your shovel again and again, knuckles raw, teeth grinding. Historians still argue whether these punishments were recorded or deliberately erased from dynastic records. One of the literate workers mutters as he digs beside you. Most of what we know comes from bones, lots of bones. After several hours of digging, you hit something hard. Not rock, bone, a skull. You recoil, but the overseer just waves it off. "Dig around it," he says. "We're here to work, not cry." By nightfall, your back is a twisted ribbon of pain. You wrap a strip of cloth around your waist, hoping to brace it. Someone passes around a poultice made of crushed pine needles and wild onion. It smells like a swamp, but you smear it on anyway. The burn distracts you from everything else. You sit down beside another worker, young, maybe 15. His hands are already calloused like yours. "I heard they're building the wall so big that it can be seen from the moon," he says. You smile weakly. "I think the moon would rather look away." He doesn't laugh. Maybe he doesn't know what the moon looks like. You both sit in silence, staring at the flickering shadows cast by the fire. A spark jumps and dances across the ground. You almost envy it, brief, bright, and free. Suddenly, a commotion rises near the main tent. Someone's collapsed, heat stroke or hunger or both. The soldiers rush over, yelling for water. Too late. The man is gone before they even uncork the jar. No ceremony, no burial. They drag him toward the trench. One more body, one less mouth. Later that night, as you lie beneath the stars, you feel the ground humming again, a low vibration, barely perceptible, like the wall itself is shifting, breathing, settling over you like a blanket of stone. You whisper into the cold night air, "What do you want from us?" But the wall doesn't answer. It never does. It just grows. The next morning greets you not with light, but with orders. The foreman's voice cracks through the thin mist like a whip. "New section. Fresh stone. Move." No time for breakfast. Not that there was anything left in your pouch except a lump of salt and a sprig of dried mustard greens. You grab your tools and follow the line of trudging workers toward the new construction site. This time, it's a section higher up the ridge, meaning more climbing. Your knees already scream in protest, but you don't argue. No one does. That's the rhythm of life here. Pain, silent stone. As you ascend, the wall stretches before you like a snake made of bones, dry, calcified, and impossible to ignore. The mist lifts slowly, revealing the jagged horizon where battlements rise like broken teeth. It's beautiful in a way. Terrifying, too. Mainstream fact: the Great Wall isn't a single wall, but a series of fortifications built over centuries by multiple dynasties, each leaving their own architectural signature. Some sections are packed earth, others are quarried stone or kiln-fired bricks, depending on the local materials and the dynasty in power. You arrive at the work zone, which is basically a patch of sloped rock and loose gravel. You're told to prepare the ground for a foundation. That means clearing debris, hauling heavy stones, and trying not to fall off the cliff's edge. Two men already have. Someone hands you a pickaxe. You swing, sparks fly. The vibrations rattle your elbows, then your teeth. After a few hours, you can't even hold the handle. Your fingers cramp into claws. So you switch, start carrying buckets of crushed stone uphill instead. The sun blazes down now, painting everything in bleached light. Your sweat evaporates before it can roll down your back. The air tastes like metal. You gasp, panting, as you reach the top with another load. The foreman nods. Barely. You're still useful. Then comes the lime. You've heard rumors that the lime water they use burns skin like acid. You never believed it until today. A bag bursts as it's being loaded, spilling white powder everywhere. One unlucky worker breathes it in. He drops to the ground, choking, clawing at his face. The foreman orders everyone to keep working. Quirky tidbit: workers along the wall were often exposed to powdered lime without protective gear. To reduce irritation, some stuffed their nostrils with wet leaves or wore crude masks made from damp cloth, though neither worked well. Your own lungs sting as you drag the bag to the next station. You try to breathe through your sleeve. Doesn't help. You cough, once, twice, then 10 times. Your throat feels like it's been scrubbed with sand. By late afternoon, the light has shifted. Shadows grow longer, but the pile of stones does not. The wall never looks closer to done. It always seems like there's more to go. More height, more width, more weight. Historians still argue whether the wall's sheer scale was more symbolic than functional, one of the old masons mutters. They say it was built as much for fear as for defense. You glance at the looming stones. He's probably right. The Mongol raids are a distant threat, but disobedience? That's immediate. That's a real danger. And so you keep stacking. Your hands bleed through the wraps. Your knees wobble. You barely notice when a sharp stone cuts your ankle. The blood runs quietly, mixing with dust, soaking your already tattered shoes. Back at camp, there's a rare luxury: hot soup. It's thin, more water than anything, but someone managed to add wild garlic and a shred or two of fatty meat. You swallow it like it's ambrosia. It warms you from the inside, makes you forget the dust and lime and heat stroke for a moment. Then the alarm sounds. A lookout saw movement in the hills. Bandits, maybe, or deserters. Everyone is ordered to sleep in shifts, one eye open, weapon close. You find a sharpened stick and lie down with it like a child clutching a teddy bear. The stars pulse overhead, impossibly distant. You wonder if anyone out there knows what it's like here. Not the emperors, not the generals, but maybe, just maybe, someone else lying beneath a different section of the wall on another hilltop, asking the same question. You drift into shallow sleep, dreams of falling, of drowning in sand, of the wall growing, not by your hands, but by some invisible force. It stretches over your body like a shroud. A shout jolts you awake, but it's nothing, just another worker moaning in his sleep. You sit up, breath caught in your throat, ears ringing. The fire's almost out. You feed it a sliver of bark. Watch the flames flicker. You whisper to yourself, just one more day. It's not a promise, it's a survival chant. And in the silence between gusts of wind, the wall hums its answer. Just one more. Dawn spills over the horizon like melted gold, but your back is too sore to appreciate the view. You rise slowly, every joint resisting like rusted hinges. The others are already moving, shoulders stooped, eyes hollow. Another day on the wall, another stretch of stone demanding your blood. Today, you're assigned to the pulley crew, hauling heavy blocks up a steep incline, using a complicated mess of ropes, wooden wheels, and human weight. It's hard work, but better than lime dust in your lungs. You think. Each block weighs more than you do. When the command comes, your team heaves together, muscles burning as the stone groans its way upward. Halfway up the ramp, the pulley squeals ominously. You freeze. The foreman barks, "Keep pulling," and so you do. Mainstream fact, the Great Wall's construction relied heavily on manual labor, leveraging pulleys, sleds, and ramps to transport materials up steep mountain slopes, often with devastating results when equipment failed. The block jerks forward, then slips. A frayed rope gives out with a snap like a gunshot. The stone tumbles backward, dragging one worker with it. He screams. The scream ends too quickly. Silence. No one moves for a beat. Then the foreman claps his hands. "Rope crew, replace it. The rest, next block." And just like that, the line resumes. The fallen man is dragged aside, his foot twisted in an unnatural direction. He doesn't get back up. No one asks if he will. This is the wall. This is the rhythm. You switch places with another laborer to give your hands a break. Now you're stacking bricks again, sealing them with that cursed mortar. It cakes under your nails, etches your fingerprints away. You're not a person anymore. You're part of the wall. Quirky tidbit, some sections of the wall are rumored to contain human bones, though most scholars believe this was metaphorical rather than literal. Yet the conditions were harsh enough that many did die during construction and were buried nearby. You try not to look at the latest makeshift grave, just a pile of stones with a flattened straw hat on top. Someone mutters a prayer. Another spits. A third keeps working like nothing happened. Historians still argue whether the wall's workforce was mostly conscripted peasants or prisoners, says one older laborer, breath wheezing through cracked lips. "I say it doesn't matter. We're all prisoners now." He's right. You've stopped dreaming about going home. The wall has become your entire world, sky, stone, sweat, and silence. The heat rises again. You tie a wet cloth over your neck to keep cool, but it dries in minutes. Your lips crack, your skin darkens, peels, burns. The fire in the sky never rests, neither do you. Midday, a new group arrives, fresh conscripts. Their clothes are cleaner, their eyes still hold questions. One of them asks you, "How long have you been here?" You shrug. Time stopped making sense after the third full moon. Another whispers, "They say the emperor will reward the best builders." You laugh, not kindly. The emperor doesn't know your name. He doesn't know your face. He only knows there is a wall and it must rise. You notice something strange, a girl among the new arrivals. She's disguised, poorly, face smudged, hair tied back, hands already blistered. She avoids eye contact. You nod slightly in her direction. You don't say a word. Neither does she. But you both know the truth. The wall breaks everyone. Later that night, you hear someone humming. A song from your village, maybe. The melody wraps around the firelight like smoke. It makes your chest ache in a way that has nothing to do with labor. Someone's mother sang that song once, maybe yours. You lie back, stare at the constellations. In your mind, you trace the shape of the wall, imagining it curling across the land like a dragon sleeping in the dust, a dragon made of bones and sweat and sorrow. And yet, it's still growing. You think back to the earliest days, when you arrived with fear in your belly and calluses only just beginning. You've changed, hardened, adapted. Your body has become a machine. Your mind, well, it floats somewhere else now. You're not the same, and neither is the wall. In a strange way, you've both become part of something ancient, something terrible, something eternal. Someone snores nearby. Another mutters in his sleep. The fire crackles softly, low embers glowing like eyes in the dark. You close your own eyes, and the sound of distant hammering fades into your dreams. The wall builds itself now, you think. We're just its fingers. And in the wind, the stones whisper, "One more day." Your journey through dust and stone ends beneath a sky that never changes. You lie still, the echo of hammer strikes fading to memory, the weight of 1,000 bricks no longer pressing against your spine. The wall is behind you now, in every sense, its harshness, its endless hunger, its terrible purpose. But in the quiet that follows, you begin to notice something else. The wind no longer bites at your skin. Instead, it brushes past gently like a forgotten lullaby. The stars above blink softly, not as distant gods, but as familiar companions. Your breath slows, your muscles loosen. The pain, that constant companion through every step of your imagined past, releases you. Even the sounds, the soft snoring of your fellow workers, the crackle of distant firewood, the murmur of shifting sand, melt into a warm hush, a blanket of silence. Safe, still, forgiving. And you realize something important. You made it through. Not without hardship, not without cost, but you endured. The wall may be eternal, but your time in its shadow is over. Let the stone keep its secrets. Let the wind carry your story. Now let yourself rest. Let your mind drift beyond the mountains, beyond the echoes of shouting overseers and broken tools, beyond even the wall itself. Just you, in a wide open space. Quiet, cool, timeless. There's nothing more to carry, nothing left to build. Just the soft beat of your own heart and the gentle lull of dreams waiting patiently on the horizon. Good night, wanderer. Sleep deeply. You're safe now. End of script. Sweet dreams.